Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Guys That Magic. It's me, it's Steven. Today I'm joined with Hunter. Hunter, say hello.
What's up, everybody?
Super excited for this $300, the bigger, the badder upgrade for the Precon deck Jump Scare. Hunter, are you excited?
Ooh, I am terrified to be jump scared. I don't know. I don't know why I said that.
No, I think when you get jump scared, you're not scared
uh,
at that moment, you know?
I guess you're right.
I know I'm right. Well, anyways, I'm super excited for this. So why don't you jump in and let me know about Zimone?
Yeah, so this is a direct sequel. If you guys haven't already seen the $100 upgrade to Zimone, check the link in the description. Go watch that first, then come back and watch this because we're putting in better cards in addition to the 100. So, but as a reminder, Zimone Mystery Unraveler is 2 a green and a blue for a 3/3 legendary creature human wizard. It has landfall, which means whenever a land you control enters, manifest dread. If it's the first time, this ability is resolved this turn. Otherwise, you may turn a permanent you control face up. If you guys don't remember to manifest dread, basically, you look at the top 2 cards of your library, you put one onto the battlefield face down, and the other one into the graveyard. It's very cool that you can look at the top 2. I think that's a very, very awesome thing. So much better than regular old manifest. So the name of the game, landfall, lands matter. Trying to get is the cool stuff onto the battlefield face down and then flip it over for free. We're just cheating in stuff.
Yeah, the thematics of this deck are really fun. It is literally a jump scare because you have no idea what your opponent's going to turn over whenever they have Zimone on the field, and it is terrifying. As always, we are doing the Face Commander $300 upgrade for this one. If you want to see the $300 backup commander, you can always check our description for our Patreon link down below, where we always post the backup commanders only on our Patreon. But before we get into this video, let's go ahead and hear a word from our sponsors.
Hey, what's up, nerds? Today's video is sponsored by our good friends over at Evoke the Art, Bespoke Token Series. If you're looking for another way to upgrade your decks, Evoke the Art's got you covered. Their complete set comes with 50 tokens, 45 of which are double-sided, offering a diverse range of artwork and utility. Head on over to zaxxamastudios.etsy.com to pick up yours today. You can find the link in the description. Once again, huge thanks to Evoke the Art. Now let's get back to the video.
All right. That was a good sponsor video. I gotta say, I do love hearing Shane talk. It is my favorite thing in the world. All right, Hunter. Well, let's go ahead and get into it.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and start with these additions. First and foremost, everything that you see on the screen right now, I'm keeping everything the same as the $100 upgrade. Again, this is a sequel, so go ahead and check the description for the video and see why I added all these cards. But now, let's get into the better stuff, the bigger stuff, the more expensive cards, if you will. We're going to throw in Ancient Green Warden. That's right. It's 4 and 2 green for a 5/7 creature elemental. It's got reach. It says you may play lands from your graveyard. It also says if a land entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. That's right. So if we can cheat this into play as a face down creature, flip it over for free, and then we can just start playing our fetches or whatever we had in the graveyard. Maybe we're manifesting dread and we're throwing a land into the grave and keeping something down. We can now play those lands from the grave into the battlefield, get that double trigger from our commander because Ancient Green Warden is on the field. This is so good.
Yeah, I really feel like your commander just needs to die a lot.
We will see. I'm also throwing a brand new card in this deck. I don't know. I missed it. I missed it on the 100. I'm putting it in here. It's Hauntwood Shrieker, 1/2 green, 3/3 creature, beast mutant. Whenever it attacks, you manifest dread, and it has the ability you can pay 1 and green, reveal target face down permanent. If it's a creature, turn it face up. So for 2 mana, if we are not doing the thing with our commander of playing the second land per turn, just flip over creatures for 2 mana. I like that.
Yeah, and it's just a ability that's just on there. Don't have to wait a turn. Don't have to tap it. You just get to do it.
Just get to do it. That's right. I'm also throwing in Jin Kataxia's Core Augur. That's right. We're going to cheat some big baddies into this deck. It's 8 and 2 blue for a 5/4 legendary creature praetor. It's got flash. At the beginning of your end step, draw 7 cards. Each opponent's maximum hand size is reduced by 7. Just a really mean card that we want to get into play full free.
Yeah, I don't want to say anything about this card. My mom said if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it at all.
And moving on to the final 2 creatures, we are flipping over some extra mean things. Like I said, we are trying to just cheat things into play face down, flip them face up. It's all about that landfall. So the first one is Blightsteel Colossus. I think you all know what this is. It's 12 generic mana for an 11/11 artifact creature golem. It's got trample, it's got infect, it's got indestructible. It also says if it would be put into a graveyard from anywhere, reveal it, shuffle it into its owner's library instead. So a really cool thing about this is if we manifest Dread, and we technically don't want to put Blightsteel Colossus into the battlefield yet, put it in the graveyard, put it right back in the deck. Granted, you're probably going to put it onto the battlefield, but again, this is just a way for it to get cheated onto the battlefield, swing in as a face down 2/2, and when your opponent goes, no blocks, you flip it over and you say, surprise, Blightsteel, you're dead.
It's quite the jump scare.
That is quite the jump scare. Another one that's quite the jump scare is Void Winnower, 9 generic for an 11/9 creature Eldrazi. It says your opponents can't cast spells with even converted mana costs, and your opponents can't block with creatures with even converted mana costs. It's just a really mean card. If we get that onto the battlefield face down and flip it face up for free, then yeah, people are bummed.
Yeah, I'm not excited to play against this whatsoever.
I am.
Just remember, we have to kill David first.
Ah, yes, of course.
All right, that looks like it's going to wrap it up for the creatures there. Let's go ahead and move on to some beautiful sorceries and some instants.
Yeah, no sorceries into the $300 upgrade, but we do have 3 instants I'm throwing in. Good old Cyclonic Rift, I feel like, is just kind of like a staple in all Simic decks or just anything running blue. It's 1 and a blue for an instant. Return target non-land permanent you don't control to its owner's hand, or an Overlord cost for 6 and a blue just means bounce everybody's things. Sorry. You know what it does.
Yeah. I mean, you built the deck pretty mean with just the creatures. I kind of could definitely understand why Cyclonic Rift is here, because you just want to be mean all around.
That's true. We're also throwing in Heroic Intervention, just as a little bit extra protection. 1 in the green instant, permanents you control gain hexproof and indestructible to end a turn. Very simple. And Worldly Tutor I'm throwing into this build as well. For 1 green mana instant, search your library for a creature card, reveal it, then shuffle and put the card on top. I really like Worldly Tutor here because you can do this in response of your own trigger. So let's say you put a fetch land onto the field, your commander triggers. In response to the trigger, use Worldly Tutor. Go ahead and get that best. Go ahead and get Blightsteel Colossus. Put that onto the battlefield face down. Everybody knows it's going to happen. And then crack the fetch and it flips over immediately. So, yeah. Surprise. Jump scare.
Yeah, I wouldn't say too much of a jump scare, because obviously you are revealing the card you're grabbing, so they probably know which one you are manifest dreading. But it is scary still.
It is scary still.
All right, let's move on to some more scary things. I see some artifacts and enchantments getting added.
Yep, 1 of each. 1 artifact, 1 enchantment, and they go quite well together, I would say. So Scroll Rack is going into this. It's 2 mana for an artifact. You can pay 1, tap it, exile any number of cards from your hand face down. Put that many cards from the top of your library into your hand. Then look at the exiled cards and put them on top of your library in any order. So it's just a way of kind of, okay, we're about to manifest Dread. I got good creatures in my hand that I would really rather just cheat onto the battlefield. Let's go ahead and activate that Scroll Rack. Go ahead and put these back on top of the deck in the order I want, and then we can manifest it onto the field. Guardian Project here is just extra card draw. So if we do accidentally draw cards, like I said, we can use that Scroll Rack, but we still need to draw extra cards. And Guardian Project, guess how this works? So it's 3 into green for an enchantment. It says whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, if it doesn't have the same name as another creature you control or a creature card in your graveyard, you draw a card. This is always good for Commander because you have 100 cards. All of your creatures aren't going to have the same name. But what's really interesting is we're not actually having tokens come in because you're manifesting. So it's just a face down card. It has no name, which counts as a different name because there isn't actually a name. So whenever we manifest Dread, we are triggering Guardian Project and drawing a card.
Yeah, so a lot of card draw here is what you're telling me.
Yeah, and if we accidentally draw those big cards, like I said, Scroll Rack, put it back on top.
I mean, I like the direction this deck's going. Speaking of good directions, I see a lot of beautiful lands here, buddy. Tell me about them.
Yep, finally, just the land package I'm throwing into the bigger build. I'm throwing in Misty Rainforest. It's a land, you can tap it, pay 1 life, sacrifice Misty Rainforest, or life for a forest or island, put it on the battlefield, and shuffle. It's just another card that really helps us go ahead and hit that double landfall trigger for our commander. It's important. Shifting Woodland, I felt like was really good to include in this deck. It enters the battlefield tapped unless you control a forest. You can tap it to add a green, or if you have Delirium, you can pay 2 and 2 green. It becomes a copy of a target permanent card in your graveyard until end of turn. Activate only if there are 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyard. So we are manifesting Dread, which means 1 comes on the battlefield, 1 goes into the graveyard. If something ends up going into the graveyard that you really liked, Shifting Woodland can be like, I'm going to turn into that thing. And just, it's pretty cool. I'm also throwing in the Kamigawa channel lands. I think they're really good because we have a lot of different ways to go ahead and play lands from our graveyard. So we can use the channel effect on these cards and then later play them from the graveyard onto the battlefield. So Bosejo, Who Endures, is a legendary land. You can tap it at a green. The channel is 1 and a green. You discard it, destroy target artifact, enchantment, or non-basic land an opponent controls. That player goes and searches for a land with a basic type, puts it onto the battlefield, and shuffles. It costs 1 less to activate for each legendary creature you control. Just removal on a land is always incredible. And Ottawara Soaring City also going in, which is tapping for a blue, or the channel part is 3 and a blue. You discard it, return target artifact, creature, enchantment, or planeswalker to its owner's hand. This ability costs 1 less to activate for each legendary creature you control. Once again, an incredible way just to channel these out and later play them from our graveyard, just for any kind of those effects that say we can play lands from our graveyard. But Ottawara Soaring City not only is just get rid of that opponent's blocker that's in the way, it also is a bit of protection if we needed to bounce our cards back to our hand.
I mean, out of any land package I've seen so far, this has been my favorite.
Oh, yeah.
Shifting Woodland is a great include, my friend.
It is indeed. I like it a lot.
All right. Well, is that going to be it for the additions?
That's all of the additions for this $300 build of Zimone.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and move on to the removals. Obviously, we have some great additions, which means we do have to get rid of some of the other cards in the deck.
Yeah, but before we start with those new removals, I just want to remind everybody, once again, sequel. So everything on the screen, I am keeping cut from the $100 build back into this build. There's a reason I cut all those. If you wanted to see the reasoning, check the link in the description once again. But let's go ahead and move on to these new cuts. I will start with some creatures. We had a lot of cool creatures, so some creatures needed to get out. First up, I'm getting rid of Sentinel Hierophants. It's 3 and a green for a 3/2 creature human druid. It says creatures you control have tap at a green. We are a landfall deck. We are going to be cheating in multiple lands a turn. So we don't really need the kind of effect to make everything tap for mana when we have so much mana all the time. So I just felt like this was an easy cut.
Yeah, especially this being at 4 mana, pretty aggressive, especially when you're a landfall deck.
Exactly that. Rashmi, Eternity's Crafter, is 2 green blue for a 2/3 legendary creature elf druid. So whenever you cast your first spell each turn, reveal the top card of your library. You may cast it without paying its mana cost. If it's a spell with lesser mana value, if you don't cast it, you put it in your hand. I mean, that effect is cool, but we're mostly not going to be casting things. We're going to be cheating things in using the Manifest Dread ability. And I feel like Rashmi just wasn't doing enough in the deck. I understand, once again, you're trying to do stuff from the top of your library. It's very cool. Just not in this build. Death Mist Raptor, 1 and 2 green for a 3/3 creature dinosaur beast. I love my dinosaurs, but not this one. And it's got Death Touch and says whenever a permanent you control is turned face up, you may return Death Mist Raptor from your graveyard to the battlefield face up or face down. And it's got a Megamorph of 4 and a green, which means you may cast this card face down for a 2/2 for 3 mana. And then you can turn it face up for its Megamorph cost and put a +1/+1 counter on it. Nah, that is not enough for me. Did you see the things we added instead? Death Mist Raptor is just not as powerful.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised this was around for the 100, to be honest with you.
Yeah, we got some other stuff. The final 2 cards I am cutting out of the creature department. Both big creatures. Both was probably just going to be cheated in using that Manifest Dread mechanic. But we have Blightsteel Colossus and we've got Void Winnower. So I feel like those are infinitely better than these two. Shriekwood Devourer is 5 and 2 green for a 7/5 creature tree folk. It's got trample and says whenever you attack with 1 or more creatures, untap up to X lands, where X is the greatest power among those creatures. That ability is cool. Don't get me wrong, but worst case scenario, if I don't have this down, Manifested Dread, it's 7 mana for a 7/5 that probably isn't going to do as much. So like I said, I like the other cards I added in. This one's getting the cut. And the final creature is Thunderfoot Baloth for 2 green, 5/5 creature beast. It's got trample, and it has that lieutenant mechanic, which means as long as you control your commander, Thunderfoot Baloth gets +2/+2, and other creatures you control get +2/+2 and have trample. That's cool, but you always got to look at the floor of a card, and the floor of this card is that it's a 6 mana 5/5 with trample. That is it, because if we don't have our commander, it doesn't get that clause. So it's gone.
Yeah, these two make perfect sense getting cut, especially when you added those bigger, badder baddies into your deck.
Oh, yeah.
All right, that looks like it's going to do it for the creature removal. Let's go ahead and move on to some other spells.
Yeah, I got some instants and sorceries here. This first one, Aether Gale, 3/2 blue for a sorcery. Returns 6 target non-land permanents to their owner's hands. I mean, that's cool. It's a sorcery, so it's kind of slow. And guess what? I would rather play Cyclonic Rift, which is an instant that bounces everything and not just 6. So it's a quick swap between those two.
Yeah, I mean, an extra 2 mana and you bounce everything else. I think it's way better.
Way better. Azuri's Predation I'm actually removing here for 5 and 3 green for a sorcery. It says for each creature your opponents control, you create a 4/4 green Phyrexian Beast creature token. Each of those tokens fights a different one of those creatures. It's a really cool catch-up card, meaning if your board is absolutely empty and all of your opponents are doing cool things, for 8 mana, you can fill up your entire board and kill some stuff in the process. I get that, but once again, this is 8 mana, and if we do happen to accidentally manifest Dread or this gets flipped over for whatever reason, it's never going to be cast because it's not a permanent, so it's unfortunate. But for, like I said, it's 8 mana. We're trying to cut the curve just a little bit because we added some other big things. This was the kind of the weaker one of the bunch. Zimone's Hypothesis is 3 and 2 blue for an instant. It says you may put a +1/+1 counter on a creature and then choose odd or even and then return each creature with the power of the chosen quality to its owner's hand. It's a nifty little effect. You're kind of hoping to keep at least one creature around because you're choosing the creature you put the counter on, more than likely. I just felt like I didn't need this effect. It's a cool effect, and I actually kept it in the backup commander because it cared about counters. But in this deck, I don't really care about counters.
Never thought I'd hear you say that.
Neither did I. And the final instant we're getting rid of is Dig Through Time. 6/2 blue for an instant. It's got Delve, which means each card you exile from your graveyard while casting this spell pays for 1. Look at the top 7 cards of your library, put 2 of them into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. It's just a kind of easy way to draw cards in a way. I mean, you're not actually drawing, but you are just getting cards that you might want into your hand. I feel like you're trying to manipulate the top of your deck a little bit more than putting cards into your hand. So I feel as though Dig Through Time just isn't doing as much work as it would in, say, like a self-mill deck.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, Dig Through Time is a pretty strong card, but at the same time, you know, I feel like you're trying to play around with your graveyard a little bit more, and exiling cards is never too fun if you're doing that.
No, not really.
I do see one artifact cut. Very interesting.
Yeah, I'm actually cutting Simic Signet. I usually love all of the mana rocks in all of my decks, but we are a lands matter deck, so we actually don't need it. We're just going to be ramping so frequently with just putting lands into play with multiple lands per turn effects, lands from graveyards effect. We're chilling. So I'm cutting Simic Signet, 2 mana artifact. You could pay 1, tap it to add a green and blue. Yeah, this is gone.
All right. Obviously, you added a beautiful bunch of lands. Which lands did you get rid of?
Yep, just kind of getting rid of the lands that, in my opinion, just aren't doing it anymore. So Thornwood Falls is a land that always enters tapped. When it enters, you gain 1 life, and you can tap it for a green or blue. So minimal, I do not care about that effect. Mosswort Bridge is a land that has Hideaway 4, so you can look at the top 4 and hide something. And then it always enters tapped. You can tap it for a green, and you can pay a green and tap it, and you can play the exiled card without paying its mana cost. If creatures you control have total power 10 or greater, most of the time, if you're not playing like a giant Gruul Stompy deck, Mosswort Bridge is not that good, especially when our I know we're going to be flipping over things and we will have eventually that 10 power, but they all start as 2/2s. So we're going to have to work our way up to getting to that hideaway cost. And I am not about having lands come in tapped. So that was an easy cut. Overflowing Basin is a land. It's a filter land that I absolutely hate. It's very similar to the Simic Signet. You just pay 1 into it, tap it to add a blue and green. If you have this in your opening hand, you're sad because I would rather have a different land that can immediately tap for mana. And finally, we are mostly green, so I'm just cutting 1 island out of the deck. And that's it.
All right, Hunter. Well, this is obviously the sequel. So you were given $100 in your first video. Now we're at the $300 marker. What are you at?
So at the time of recording this video, I am so good at this sometimes. It's $299.92. I'm saving you guys 8 cents if you buy all the cards at the cheapest printing right now.
Fantastic. That means I can use 8 cents in my $300 upgrade. I appreciate that, Hunter.
There you go, man. Go add a basic land.
Well, sweet, Hunter. I can honestly say I'm terrified. I really don't want to play this Precon upgrade battle with either of your decks, to be quite honest with you. But with that being said, do you have any final thoughts on Zimone?
Yeah, Zimone is awesome. I'm actually pleasantly surprised with this deck. Manifest Dread, I think, is one of the better mechanics I've seen from a set in a long time. I know we talk about power creep all the time, but Manifest Dread is infinitely better than just Manifest, giving you the ability to go ahead and pick whichever one you want and put it onto the battlefield face down the other end of the graveyard. It really opens the book on how to do different things. And then Zimone takes that up a notch by just flipping over cards for you without even having to pay. It's cheap. It's free. I love it.
I am terrified of it. But with that being said, that will conclude this video. We are very excited to play this Precon upgrade. I know Hunter's definitely going to be the most excited, to be quite honest with you.
Oh, yeah.
But don't forget to give this video a like. Maybe go ahead and subscribe while you're down there. Also, down in the description, you will find links to all of our social media. It is going to be at Guys at Magic for Everything on Twitter, Instagram, and even on TikTok. We post some fun stuff on there as well. If you guys want to go ahead and play test this deck or do a little gold fishing, you'll see a link down in the description for the Mox field. And go ahead and leave a comment. Let us know what you would have added to this deck instead of what Hunter added. Did you like his ads? Did you not like his ads? Did you like his cuts? Did you not like his cuts? Also, right here on the screen, you will see all of our beautiful patrons. We greatly appreciate everything you guys do for us. Thank you again. Also, down there, you will find a link to our Patreon channel that we mentioned earlier, where you can find the $300 upgrade to the backup commander for this deck, and it is just as scary. But as always, until the next video, hope you guys have a good rest of your day. Take care.
Peace.